Hello wonderful teachers and welcome to another Vibrant Music Teacher Chat, our weekly live show where we talk about all things to do with music teaching. Today's special topic is about strengths and weaknesses in our teaching and our playing and how they're often the opposite of each other. So we're going to be unpacking that further. I think it's an interesting thing to be aware of, much like being aware of your own biases, being aware of your strengths and weaknesses and how they influence the things you gloss over or teach well, I think is really informative. Before we get there, just a couple of bits of news. So first of all, big PSA that the super early bird tickets for the Teacher Turbo Boost in Cincinnati, which is our 2-day conference in Cincinnati happening this July, Cincinnati, Ohio, USA. It's happening this July on the 20th and 21st. And the super early bird tickets are almost gone. We had a limited number of those, so there's just a few left. So if you were thinking about it and you want to get the best price, you should jump over and check that out. The link will be in the description. And yeah, I'll add it into the chat right now as well for those watching live. So hop to it. It's expiring no matter what at the end of April. So the super early bird tickets will be gone then. The next tier of pricing will be available. It's not that there's no tickets after that, but if you do want to get the best price, now is the time to do it because I think they might run out before the end of the month, which is awesome, which is great. So if you happen to be watching and you're one of the ones who's already bought your ticket and you're coming, I cannot wait to meet you there. It is going to be so much fun. All the details are on that page. And yeah, just hop to it if you want to get the best special price. So many fun surprises I've been sorting out for that recently. Some other stuff, of course, is going on as always. We've got our new Vivid features kind of lined up. I've been in meetings this week talking about the features we're adding to Vivid Practice soon. So if you're using the app or you've been thinking about it, you can watch out for an update on that. A few fun things we're adding. And then I've also been working on lots of scales videos. So if I sound a little bit tired, even though I haven't been talking, I feel like my voice sounds tired a little bit. And it's from recording scales videos, hence why my hands are painted in different colors to each other. They always are when I'm doing scales videos. And they're tiring. If you've never tried to record pretty much endless scale videos, I was going to give you the number, but honestly, it's 6 of each key every time I do this. So you do each scale 6 times. At the moment, I'm doing formula patterns. So you can imagine it gets to be a lot. But I'm nearly done with those, I'm delighted to say, after my recording session today. I did at one point in the middle, just to give you a little vulnerable moment, at one point in there, I was playing the C minor. So that's towards the end of the circle, hence I was doing it towards the end of my session. C minor, formula pattern, and I managed to put my 5th finger over my thumb. I mean, I don't think I've ever even done that before by mistake, so that was just interesting. I had to have a giggle at myself for that. But yeah, challenging yourself, doing big projects like this, it helps us keep our empathy with students, so that's what I tell myself. Laurie, I'm not sure what you're asking about, so I'll just clarify titles of a few things. The Teacher Turbo Boost, is that what you're talking about? That's the event in Cincinnati that's happening in July, Teacher Turbo Boost. If you go to that link that I've just dropped in the chat, you can find that. If you're referring to something else, please let me know. And if you have any questions, anyone, about random things, please add them into the comments and I will come back to anything that's off topic towards the end of the show. Right now, let's dive into our main topic. So today I want to talk about strengths and weaknesses and how they appear in our teaching. So I've long thought about this myself because I think a lot of my own weaknesses in my playing or in my general life skill set become my strengths in my teaching. And the reason I think that is, well, I go back to my own teachers. So let me know if you've ever experienced this yourself as a teacher or you've had teachers like this. some of the teachers that I had who were amazing, the best musicians, were actually not amazing teachers. And they could have become amazing teachers. It's not that I think if you're a great musician, you can't be a great teacher. That's not what I'm saying. But a lot of people who naturally took to their instrument, maybe started quite young, maybe just progressed quickly through the levels for whatever reason, loads of practice, very supportive parents, whatever. If you breezed through some aspect of playing, or more aspects of playing, all, then you tend not to be as good at teaching them and breaking them down instinctively because you haven't done that work. Or you can't remember it if you started very young. You haven't been through that process, or you've forgotten it. And therefore, it's harder for you to teach those things. Let me know if that resonates with you, because I've seen this a lot in my own teaching and with teachers that I've had as well. So, if your strengths become your weaknesses, I think your weaknesses also become your strengths. So I'm going to give you a few examples, but I really want to hear yours. I want to hear what your strengths are in your playing and in your teaching, and whether they're opposites of each other or whether you've seen this play out in your teaching. And you can let me know if some of mine are the same as yours or you're the opposite way as I go through. I'm going to be super transparent and share some of my strengths that could become teaching weaknesses when I'm not careful, and then the opposite, weaknesses that I believe have turned into teaching strengths for me. So my first strength that I didn't realize was a strength, this is a more recent revelation, which is why it came top of the list when I was writing these notes, is expression and emotion in my playing. That's something that I don't remember my teachers ever, or at least not beyond the point of like age 11 or 12, did my teachers ever have to encourage me to play with more expression or more emotion. Yes, sometimes to pay attention to dynamics, all that usual stuff, but once I got that, and once I connected with the music, I naturally played with a lot of expression and emotion. And so, because I didn't have to be, like, I wasn't taught that very explicitly, because I don't think I needed to be, therefore, I've had to think very carefully recently, once I really realized that, and once I had a few students who were getting to a level where it was very apparent that that was lagging behind for them as a skill. It's like this expressive playing and this emotion in their playing. So while I'd done bits of work with students before, at this stage I realized, some students need a lot more help in this area. And I had to really think about how I was going to teach that to students, since to me it just seemed instinctive. Once you know the notes, once you know the rhythm, once you know how the piece sounds, you naturally play around with it and play it the way that you feel it, right? So is anyone else on my side with that one, or the opposite side? Did you have to work very hard at this in your own playing? Did you not have to work very hard at it in your own playing and then have to work hard at it in your teaching? I would love to hear. So that's the first one, expression or emotional playing. Number 2, that I've been aware of for longer, that is a strength that I had to be careful to find ways to explain in my teaching and to work on with my students who weren't getting this. And this is one that I was aware of quite early on, because it's just something that reveals itself, I guess, elsewhere in life. And that is maths. Specifically in music, the maths of music. Rhythms, note values, time signatures, all of that stuff. Yes, I had to learn it, but it doesn't take a lot for that to make sense for me. In fact, with my teachers, mostly just an explanation would do. Maybe a couple of times to remind me. I don't remember, of course. I was a child. Probably I heard it a few times. But I never really had to have it broken down in terms of the fractions and dots and even double dots. That's maths. And maths, well, I'm not a maths wizard at all. I have a brother who is, and I'm definitely not amazing at maths. I was pretty okay at it in school. And in music, it just made sense to me. In fact, do you have any students who run into problems because at some point, so they've been progressing, and they're playing pieces that are hands together, and they're just playing them. You may not realize they're doing this, but they're just playing them by looking at where the notes line up and playing those notes together. And even like playing them roughly where it looks like they're in between the other notes or whatever. They're playing them just by looking at the horizontal position, in other words. I never did that. If I had a hands together piece, I never even looked. I mean, I probably would have known that they lined up if you asked me, but I never trusted that. I always worked out the maths of how the two fit together within the bar. That's just a side note, but I'd love to know if you're the same as me or you're like totally the opposite, because I've seen it with students where they hit a certain point and it's not that clear where the notes line up, or they're playing from sheet music where it's not actually accurate in alignment, and you realize, oh, that's the only way they're figuring out how to coordinate the hands. Sometimes we have to work it out. Not all the time like I used to, but sometimes. So let me know about those two. So we've got expression in your playing. Were you strong at that? Were you weak at that? And how did that translate to your teaching? And then we've got the maths of music. Note values, the fractions, and all of that stuff we talk about in music. Were you strong at that or weak at that? And how did that translate to your teaching? Okay, my third example, time management. Now I think, don't get me wrong, this is a teaching strength, 100%. And it's something I actually have had to be aware of, that it comes quite naturally to me. And when I'm working with other teachers, I have to be aware of that and like break things down in terms of the process that's going on in my mind when I break down time. Because I just naturally do it in terms of like how long things take me and how I'm going to plan out a practice session or a lesson or anything like that. It's not something I have to work out a huge amount. So again, I have to be aware of that in my teaching, because if I know that I'm above average with time management, then I need to be very clear with students and be aware with which students are struggling in that area. So struggling to manage their practice time, even tasks that we do in lessons and various aspects of time management. I need to be paying attention to which students need more help with that, and I need to break down the process that goes on in my mind quite naturally for them to understand it. Does that make sense? So that's my third. Let me know where you stand with that. Time management, struggle, easy for you. How does that come through in your lessons? Number 4, this is my last strength in my general life my playing, and how it translates to my teaching. So, remembering terms. I've always found, now I'm not like super fluent in any languages, but languages in school weren't a major struggle for me. It's quite relatively easy, I would say, compared to some of my peers in school and things, for me to remember vocabulary in another language. And therefore, music terms, pretty easy for me to remember what they mean. I didn't have to do a lot of drilling with them in the lead up to like my exams that I did, where they ask you about the terms on the page. That was never a really big concern for me. And for some of my students, that's the most stressful thing, is just remembering what the term is and what it means and being able to say that on command. Like for some students, especially my neurodivergent students, they do kind of know sometimes, but other times it just escapes them and they can't come out with that answer. And you have to be aware of that in terms of prioritizing what even matters, right? Because to me, in the first several years of study, terms are like the least important thing to me. So yes, we go through them. Yes, we go over them. Yes, we play games with them, but I'm not that fussed early on. And then later on, if they're still struggling with some basic terms, we need to go over them in different ways and practice them more. Laura said, I've always been very skilled with theory and articulations, but have had to work on teaching methods for this. Yes, exactly, right? You need to take the time, take that contemplative moment, or hours, or days, or weeks, to think about, okay, what are all the steps involved in what I'm doing? Okay, so those are my strengths. I still want to hear yours, more of yours coming in. Now I'm going to go on to my weaknesses in my playing and how they've become strengths in my teaching. So you can share examples of this as well. Number 1, technical things, I'm calling this, is probably a weakness of mine, or was in my playing growing up. So that is, pedaling and articulation and all the technical aspects of how we play certain types of notes and etc. And I had a lot of teachers that I had would mostly talk about just listen and then try to achieve the sound you want. And while that is great advice, it's only half of what's going on. And I think we need to teach the two sides of this. So this is something that, as I went through my lessons, I had to work out for myself how these things physically worked, mechanically worked. And therefore, that's fresh on my mind, right? How do I break that down for students? And I can teach them the mechanics and to focus on the sound, the active listening skills. And one or the other or both will work for them, right? So like for pedaling, literally breaking down legato pedaling of what are the actions and when are we doing them. We actually have a course coming out in a few weeks probably in Vibrant Music Teaching, on the Vibrant Music Teaching site, about teaching legato pedaling. And it's me breaking down exactly the steps I go through with students so that they understand the actions they're doing and then connect those to the sound they're trying to produce, right? Both sides of that are great. Okay, my second weakness that I think has become a strength is general coordination. So I'm not super coordinated as a person. It's probably I'm hypermobile in most of my joints, so it's probably partially that. I did a lot of dance growing up, and like that's always been fine for me, but I never really played a lot of sports or anything like that. I did mostly solo things. And yeah, the coordination between the hands and figuring out how things fit together and how to make my two hands and my foot do what I want them to do at the right time, in the right way, takes breaking down for me. And more so when I was growing up in lessons. So, therefore, I feel like I'm good at breaking that down. When a student is struggling with coordination, I'm better than, I have more natural ability to break down the steps in order to build up towards playing that bar as it's intended to be played, for example. Number 3 is speed. I gravitated much more myself, especially in my teenage years, to sort of not super fast pieces. So not virtuosic stuff, but expressive stuff, as we talked about already, right? Big chords and fun stuff like that, yes, absolutely. Not so much playing Baroque music really fast. Wasn't my favourite, and it maybe wasn't my natural, not ability, because no one's naturally able to do that, but my natural persuasion either. And so I've had to work very diligently at strategies to, when I need to speed things up, how do I do that? When I need to achieve, that kind of style, how do I work towards that? So I have practice techniques to enable me to do that then I can pass on to students. And my final example then of a weakness that is a strength in my teaching is memorization. This is largely because I didn't do it. I think this is a big difference in different parts of the world, much like the exam thing or even the recital thing. I wasn't told specifically to memorize music at all. I was going to say until No, I just started doing it by myself when I was in my late teens, but I wasn't told to do it. And because of that, I don't think I developed those skills early enough. Like I see a lot of my students who start with us quite young and we work on memorization, they don't think it's a big deal. And then I see other students who maybe transfer to us and they're teenagers when they start with us. And when you work on memorization, it is a bigger deal. And it was for me as well. So I have strategies again to explicitly memorize things very intentionally from the beginning to be able to put things in my memory bank in a secure way that I can trust. And I do think memorization is largely about trusting yourself, because you do have to go with your muscle memory. You do have to let it do its thing, even if you also have the backup plan, which is what I advocate for, of having the knowledge about the piece and the understanding of it and everything and clusters and all of this stuff, right? That's not the topic of today, but all of this stuff that can underpin it. You do actually have to just trust your fingers to mostly just do what you've practiced them doing, to go with muscle memory. So I think starting that young can be very helpful. Okay, checking in with the chat here. So Ashley said, it seems the things that came easiest to us, we didn't have to break down the process. Exactly. So then you have to learn the teaching process as a teacher. Exactly what I'm saying. I'll come back to that in a second, Rose. Laura, your weaknesses are my weaknesses. Okay. It's fun to have a twin, right? Are my strengths also your strengths? Or do you have different strengths? Okay, keep adding in your strengths and weaknesses. I am curious to hear them. And I hope that you'll think about this as you go forward, because just ever so often checking in and saying, hang on, this student is struggling with this thing. Is this something that I ever struggled with? And if it is, how did I get through it, and might that help them? And if it isn't, I need to do more work and maybe reach out to other teachers and figure out how to get them over this hump, because I didn't have to do it. And also to be aware, like when you're doing your own practice or going about your daily life, of the things that come easily to you, because everyone has things that come a bit easier than others, innate talents, as it were, for certain things. And how does that affect your teaching? How does that affect your playing? How does that bleed through into your teaching? And what might you be leaving out of your teaching just because you didn't need a lot of instruction in it? Okay, we'll go into the Ask Me Anything section if you want to ask a general question. So Rose asked, you mentioned in a previous stream a book that has pieces from games. Do you remember that book name or composer? I have a boy student who... Oh, right, from like video games. I was like, from board games? This sounds cool, but I don't know what it is. No, I got you. Yeah, it's not really a book. It's a collection. It's on music notes, and it is by Chrissy Ricker. So let me type you the composer's name into the chat for you. Chrissy Ricker. If you look up her name on music notes, you'll find she has separate pieces like from Minecraft and stuff, and then she has some collections where you group them together and you can get them at a slightly better price, I think. Yeah, hope that helps. I have a student right now who is learning the Minecraft theme, and it's 4 pages, but it's repeating sections, so I've kind of color coded it for him in terms of where it repeats, which is a strategy to help him break down the music. We're largely learning it by rote, but I want him to be able to refer to the score. Anyway, it's 4 pages long, and he just finished page 3 yesterday. Like, he played the first 3 pages. Not perfectly, but pretty good. And he was thrilled with himself. And then I got to flip over to the 4th page and be like, this is actually just 2 more of the sections we've already done. So all we have to do is remember which sections are going to repeat, and then we'll finish the piece next week. So I love moments like that. It was really good. Ashley, purchasing pop songs or collections that aren't already out of fashion. Is it best to buy individual lead sheets from direct music websites? Okay, so yeah, I have some pop books, and you can look on the channel for pop piano, and you'll, like on this channel, for pop piano, and you'll come across my thoughts more generally on teaching pop music. But to give you the brief answer, There are these books from Faber, which are in their pre-time to big time series, but they don't do pre-time in this genre. So I think it's playtime to big time, okay? And then they're called hits. So it's playtime to big time hits is what you would Google, and you'll see them. Now, they are out of date, but they are generally songs that quite a lot of students will know because they're still kind of going around the radio with the kind of stations that maybe their mum listens to in the car, okay? But I would definitely, if you're going to buy one of those books for a student or give them one of those books, have them read through the full title list or like play the songs for them, the original songs, and just ask them, do you know this one? Do you know this one? All the way through the list. And if they don't know most of them, it's not worth getting a book. So I think your instinct in that question there was, should I just look for individual songs? In general, yes. Sometimes you have a student who just can't come up even with suggestions of songs they want to learn, and that's where those Faber books can be useful. But for most students, if they want their favourite song currently, especially with the way music has gone, there is no radio that everyone listens to. There's a personalised radio, the AI thing on Spotify or wherever they're listening, but they're all kind of separate, and a lot of them will be listening to like stuff from the 70s and then something really obscure that just came out, and you know, all over the place. So you really need recommendations from your students and take it one song at a time. If you are looking for specific individual songs though, and you need arrangements of them, I really recommend fmsheetmusic.com. So that is Jennifer Eklund, who is the author of the Piano Pronto series. She does arrangements under that separate website, under a moniker of, what is it? Someone will tell me. It's Francesca Marzioli or something like that. Anyway, that's why it's FM. But you can look, I always look on there first. It's not like she has everything, but if she has it, it's generally a great arrangement of it at a really considered level. Like the level she has marked, she's actually thought about it, she knows pedagogy, she knows what she's doing. So, because it can kind of be the Wild West in terms of what level you're actually getting with individual sheets. So hopefully that helps and gives you a bit of an overview, Ashley. Yeah, exactly right. They're like, nothing? I don't turn on the radio? Oh, you mean the thing my mum uses in the car? Yeah, exactly. So just ask them what they listen to and be open to anything. And like I generally ask students, if they're giving me specific songs, to give me at least 5 so that I can kind of experiment and see which ones might be arrangeable on the piano. Or if they have a couple of favourite bands, then they can let me know those and I can look up their songs. Some students will be reluctant to say anything that isn't already on the piano, so I do like to encourage them, like, doesn't matter if it actually has piano in it. We may or may not be able to play it on the piano. It just depends on a lot of things. So tell me what your favourite songs are and then I'll tell you if they won't work, you know. But yeah, hopefully that helps. I colour-coded it with coloured pens in this case. I have brightly coloured pens, but it could be anything. I was just marking under the staff, like as if it's a pedal marking, but it's not a pedal marking. I just mark under the staff, like pink, and then when the pink part comes again, pink. Most of the sections are two or 1.5 lines long in this piece. Laura said a weakness for me was ear training skills, and a strength is sight reading and analysis. Yes, trying to balance the two then in your teaching. Love it. Okay, interesting thoughts from everyone. Yeah, look, you have to keep asking them as well though, Ashley. I know a lot of people get discouraged because they ask their student and their student goes, you know, especially if it's a teenager. You need to keep asking them because they might be embarrassed or reticent to say, or they might think you're too uncool. But if you just keep asking them, eventually they might mutter something about someone they like. And then if you're able to bring them an arrangement of that song, they start to get it and they start to request things. Students of mine that I've had for many years who, you know, they've been through all of this, I barely even have to ask them for requests anymore. They're saying, oh, could we learn a pop song soon? And I'm like, yeah, give me your shortlist, you know. So it gets easier over time. That's all I'm saying. Okay. Thank you all so much for joining me. Remember that you can get your ticket for the Teacher Turbo Boost in Cincinnati at the super early bird price if you act quickly, because those tickets are going away pretty soon. There's only a few left. And I hope you'll join me back here next week on the show. It is same time, same place, and we're going to be doing something a bit different today. We're going to be in Canva creating the outline, not the specifics, but the outline of my studio newsletter. I'm a bit behind on it, but I'm not just using the show to catch up. Because I'm a bit behind, I thought it would be a good opportunity to show you the process in Canva, which anyone can use, and I know a lot of teachers are curious about how to use better. So we're going to be exploring that next week. I hope you'll be back then, and I hope you have an amazing week. Bye, everyone.